Well, good morning everybody. Thanks for joining me here again on the channel. I'm very excited today to be out doing some location scouting, and I want to take you guys along for the ride. Now I'm going to show you a whole stack of images in this video, and I want to sort of describe my mindset around some of the locations I'm going to, but more so how we sort of think when we're searching for locations. So anyway, I'm on the road. I'm just about to get going. It's a brisk winter's day here. Sun is sort of shining, pretty cold, so we'll get going. But one very, very important detail I've got to let you know about now. I've just dropped into my local bakery, grabbed my coffee, but hang on, that's not the most important thing. I have picked up one of my world famous rum balls. Have a look at that. So I'm going to get into that right now. It's worthy of its own segment, I think, the rum ball. Have a look at that. There's a rum ball. Hang on. It looks a little bit smaller than it used to be. I think they've downsized my rum balls. Never mind. Still tastes just as beautiful as ever. All right, well, that's enough of that. Let's get going and get out to these locations. Okay, so I'm at a location I've been to many times before, and I like to do that for a lot of reasons. One of which is to show you different concepts of how you can compose the same situation depending on what time of year it might be. At the moment, it's been raining, it's quite muddy, there's mud all over the car. So this is the location I've shot, as you know. Now, this angle that we're looking at right here now, with the dam here in the foreground and the windmill in the background, I've never shot that, but that is actually facing towards the southwest. And that would be a perfect composition to shoot with the Milky Way galactic core coming down in that western sky. So later on this year, that view will be available. And I'm hoping there's water here. So in the past, I've shot here facing towards the east. And I've got over the other side of that windmill and the other side of the dam shooting this way. But I've also shot this dam with a southerly view when there was an aurora showing. And I guess one of the things I want to talk about in this video is not just to have a single-minded focus when we look at compositions and look at the composition and say, well, that's facing east, so I'm going to have to wait for the Milky Way core to come up in the east. Because sometimes you can walk around a composition and get a completely different view of the same foreground, if you like. The other thing I want to talk about in this video is to not just have a big picture view. Okay, so what does that actually mean? What is a big picture view? Well, that's looking at the overall perspective. The sky, the Milky Way, it's huge. So that is a big picture view. But what I like to do, and you know this, I like to hone down onto smaller subjects, a bit like this old gate and this fence post. I've shot this before, you've seen the video about it, but if you start to hone in on the smaller view, the small picture, you can suddenly open up a whole new world of photographic opportunities. So I just had a chat with the local farmer, the bloke that owns all this property. I know the guy quite well. He's happy for me to have a look around here. And that's one of the things that I would say about location scouting. Get to know the local landholders and farmers, because they will be your best friend, I guarantee it. All right, so I've talked about this type of composition a fair bit, but while I was here one night a while ago, I stumbled across something else. There's a pump over there, and to be honest with you, I thought to myself on the night, I don't think there's a photo here, but I'm going to show you anyway. Okay, now this might be easier said than done. This is an electric fence, so I've got to get across here without touching that. And I know what they feel like because it's happened to me before. Here we go. Okay. All right, well, here it is. This is a pump sitting up here on this little concrete block. As you can see, it's pretty low, and around it, oh, it's just all sorts of shrubs and mud and dirt, rubbish, bits and pieces laying around. I love there's a spanner just sitting there on the ground. Don't you love farmers? I got my camera over here and I was very, very low down here, and I used my 14mm lens. Milky Way galactic core was straight up over the top of this. Now you can see the rough view that I had down here. Now this is a 28mm lens that I'm using, so you can't possibly get the same exact angle as a 14mm, but I got down really low like this because I wanted to make the foreground subject look a lot bigger, and so that's what we did. I also light painted all of this stuff here in the foreground, so you can see it there. There's all sorts of rubbish, but you know, one of the things I've noticed when you're shooting stuff like this with light painting, the light painting makes anything come alive and look great. Even this plastic here, you can see that. I couldn't get rid of it. It's in there, so I just used it. But nice low angle, Milky Way over the top, came up beautifully. Well, everybody, and I mean everybody, loves a good windmill Milky Way shot. And so this is one of many locations that I've located around the countryside that has a windmill, and often I can get right around those windmills and shoot in any directions. By the way, if you do want to capture auroras, mark that in your diary, because I know from experience, when you're out chasing auroras, the pressure is on to find a foreground subject that will line up in the right direction to shoot that aurora. So mark those in your diary, but have a look at these great windmill shots. So if you follow my channel at all, you will know that I have an addiction, if you like, to trees for my nightscape photography. And this little tree over here, what is it that makes that tree stand out from all the rest? Well, there's a couple of things, but one of those things, and this is something that I don't want you to underestimate, and that is accessibility. It is right on the side of the road here. So I don't have to jump any fences, I don't have to do anything exotic to actually take a photo of this tree. Now, I have shot this tree on 2 occasions. One of those was because I had a Milky Way coming up over here into the east. So I got my camera just over here and shot back up that way. Now, the second time that I shot this tree was when there was a big, massive aurora happening. So I basically shot that a little bit more down towards the south view. Look for trees that are single, in a sort of somewhat exposed location, a bit like this one. Trees that are easy to get to, sometimes trees that are maybe on top of a rise, on top of a hill, because then you can zoom in with a little bit longer focal length lens. And if you can shoot with a longer focal length lens, trees can look so amazing just by themselves. Okay, so next on my list, railway tracks. If you can find railway tracks in your travels around, they become a perfect foreground to shoot nightscape images around. And why is that? Well, because they go somewhere. Now, railway tracks are the perfect leading line. Now, there's a number of ways that you can use that in your Milky Way photography. Firstly, you've got to work out what it is in the background that you want to feature, and that might simply just be the sky. It might just be the Milky Way, but it might be something else. It could be, as is in the case here, there are silos down there on the edge of the railway tracks. So the railway line itself can lead into that composition. And we all know what leading lines do. They draw your eye somewhere. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are going to say, oh, not this again, but I've got to say it. Jump in the car and go driving. Search for locations. They won't jump out in front of you. You've got to go looking for them. So if there's no railway tracks in the direction you want to face, get in the car and find some that do. A direction of a railway line facing exactly the place you want to shoot. So I touched on this before, but often associated with railway tracks, you will find silos just like that. And I've shot all sorts of different things around it. So it gives you so many opportunities. And sometimes the railway tracks lead into the composition. Other times you're not even shooting the railway tracks. You might be just getting the silo. But the opportunities are there if we go searching for them. Alright, so what on earth am I doing here at this obscure location? Well, that's exactly why I'm here. It is an obscure location. In fact, a place where you would not expect to go to shoot a Milky Way image. Well, I did come here. Okay, so I've come down off the road and I'm looking over this paddock here. It just looks like a paddock, but this is actually a swamp. So when it rains, this is full of water and it becomes a great big pool. Now, over here you can see this massive big gum tree, and that is facing in an easterly direction. So when I came here to shoot, I'd already scouted this out and worked out that, okay, the Milky Way galactic core is going to rise up just over underneath that bough of the tree. We're facing south down here, and I decided I was going to shoot a panorama. So I shot all the way around to the west. The point of this location is to just make us think about shooting somewhere where it doesn't obviously stand out as a location. We go around the countryside and we look for old stone buildings, or we look for farm sheds or whatever, trees that are sitting out in the middle of a paddock like I've already talked about. Now, we do look for those things, but we don't tend to look here in an obscure place. But you can get some really, really good shots if we start thinking outside the square rather than looking for what other types of photographs we can actually take. Now, I think one of the things that we always look for our nightscape photography, or for any photography for that matter, is water. Oh boy, it's getting cold out here. The wind's getting up. Anyway, this is a location I've shot a couple of times in the past, and it's just a dam. So it's a small body of water. And the good thing about a small body of water like this is that it's possible to actually walk around to the other side, all the way around, and pretty much shoot in any direction. But I want you to think about water for a minute. Reflections, water gives you reflections. And even a very small pool of water will give you a significant reflection, especially if you get really close up to the water. So get your camera nice and low down. A small puddle of water, get a reflection of a building or something like that. Now, a bit of a clue for you, if you're going to be shooting reflections, then if you put some light on that subject, whether it's a tree or a building or whatever, it will really glow in the water and look absolutely fantastic. All right, so considering what I've got in my hand here, I think you know what my next suggestion is going to be. You guessed it, bring your own props. So I'm often looking for places where I can shoot something a little bit more intimate, such as this lantern here. And I've done plenty of videos on that, so I won't go into that too much. But what I'm suggesting is that you bring something with you to location, something small and portable like this, that you can actually feature as the main subject. So in that case, what you're doing, you're not actually looking for a big expansive sky in the background, you're honing in on this small subject. So use whatever it is you can find that you can wheel out of a shed somewhere and place somewhere in a prominent position, and you'll get some great shots. All right, well, I've put on an extra layer because it is absolutely freezing out here. The wind is blowing. Middle of winter in Australia here, still gets pretty cold. But I'll tell you what, this is an old, beautiful old harvester that's sitting out here in a paddock in the middle of nowhere. If you can locate stuff like this, it is an absolute gold mine. To be able to light this up under a starry night sky, there is nothing better, and it is probably my all-time favorite genre of nightscape photography. So old machinery. And like I said to you before, there's a couple of things that are your best friend. Make farmers your best friend, because they own this stuff and they will let you in to photograph their old machinery. And the other thing is, you've got to make country dirt tracks your other best friend. You've got to go down those, because that is where you're going to find this sort of stuff. But once you do find it, the sky's the limit. You can get some amazing compositions featuring stuff like this. So another thing that I like to add into my nightscape compositions are actually people. Now you might think, why would you want to put people in that? They'll wreck the landscape. Well, you know what that actually does is it provides scale. It gives your image dimension that gives you comparison between the human element of people and the actual landscape. Sometimes the person can be holding something to add another dimension. Now I know a lot of you people don't like the torches into the air shots and things like that. Personally, I don't mind them because it's just a bit of fun. You don't have to be all technically perfect with nightscape photography. What we're looking for is an experience. And when you put people into a shot, and I do this a lot, I do a lot of selfies because it helps me remember the occasion and the experience. It puts me back there when I look at the images, maybe years down the track. So, you know, there's a lot of reasons why you might want to feature people in your photography, but I still think it's a valid composition for our nightscape images. And so there you go. There's just some ideas from me to try and loosen up your thinking about location scouting and actually what to shoot for your nightscape imaging. You know, a lot of people get hung up on gear, they get hung up on technical side of how to shoot with camera settings, etc., and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's important, but you know, you tend to sometimes put aside the more creative stuff, and part of that creative stuff is actually location scouting, and then on location working out the actual compositions that you want to feature in your shot. So I hope this video has helped with that. I'll look forward to reading your comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one.